This is Dwight Woods, the Jeet Kune Rebel, and welcome to the I Love Jeet Kune broadcast number 208. This is the one about applying Jeet Kune principles. As you're logging in, if you'd be kind enough to say where you're logging in from, hit the like button and feel free to continue doing so throughout the broadcast. If you are catching the simulcast over on the YouTube, please be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell as well. If you enjoy my work and you'd like to support the program, please visit jkdrebel.com, click on the Rebel Gear link, and that's where you'll see stuff like this. The 4 tenets of Jeet Kune t-shirt, long sleeve, short sleeve, sweatshirt, coffee mug, all that good stuff. But of course, the best thing you can do is to share this video and spread the word about the I Love Jeet Kune broadcasts. Okay, so I'm not even sure if it's correct to say that if there's one area which separates the original Jeet Kune crowd, I'm going to use that ridiculous terminology for not even edification purposes, just because it's, I regret to say, it's an easy way to differentiate, I guess. So if there's one area that separates, but I'm not sure, because it might actually be an area that not unites, because nothing unites original Jeet Kune and what they call Jeet Kune concepts. But it's this issue of the application of JKD principles. I say that because both groups believe in the existence of the principles. They just have different ideas about how they can be used. For example, after a recent episode of the Jeet Kune Dialogues, wherein the topic of academic knowledge of Jeet Kune was discussed, there was a post made relatively soon after that, saying that people who think that intellectual knowledge of Jeet Kune is important may never achieve a high level of actual skill because they are unwilling to do the repetitive work needed to get to that high level of skill. In other words, they think that because they simply know that something exists in Jeet Kune, that's all it takes. So now they can jump onto something more. They can jump ahead to adding something to Jeet Kune because they are simply academically or intellectually aware of a Jeet Kune principle, but they do not now have to go do the work to abide by that principle and ultimately dissolve the principle, as we might say in the Kali. So interesting, because the funny thing is, if you ask people who make those kinds of statements for an explanation of the principles, more likely than not, what you might get is simply a restating of passages from a book like the Tao of Jeet Kune or any other Bruce Lee book. But if you read today's broadcast postcard, I know I was late putting it up, so you might not have had a chance to read it, but I'll show it to you here. This was the best looking one that I found. It's a Linda Lee quote that says, memorizing and regurgitating Bruce Lee's words does not increase one's intelligence. However, adapting his thoughts for one's own actions gives life to his words. Now, I suggest that I'm not going to read it again, but I suggest that you read it and really think about, especially that last part about adapting Bruce Lee's thoughts to your own actions. That's golden. Anyhow, moving on. So that is the famous Linda Lee quote. Over at brucelee.com, they say, they talk about the idea of intercepting is key to Jeet Kune, whether it be the interception of your opponent's technique or his intent. The basic guiding principles are simplicity, directness, and freedom, the form of no form. Now, I know, and a lot of you out there also know, that the original did not say and freedom. The original probably said and non-classical. And then there were some iterations where it said simplicity, directness, and effectiveness or efficiency. Right. Anyhow, to finish the quote from BruceLee.com, it says the techniques and philosophies of Jeet Kune Do can be applied to real combat as well as applied to challenging life situations. If you look around the internet for examples, let's say, of Jeet Kune Do principles, you're going to see different interpretations of what are considered such. You'll see people talk about, well, a principle of Jeet Kune Do is combat realism. Of course, somebody has to say, be like water. Some people even say that the 5 ways of attack is a major principle of Jeet Kune Do. And then I did find this one place that said that centerline is a major principle. And I think what we're talking about is centerline protection, right? Because it's like whoever controls the centerline controls the fight and that type of stuff. So interestingly, as a thought experiment, as an intellectual Jeet Kune Do experiment, as an academic Jeet Kune Do experiment, if you were to take any of these principles, whether they come from a source like Linda Lee or a source from, I'm sorry, if it comes from BruceLee.com or wherever, if you take it and you apply it, you can end up making whatever it is that you're looking at more effective. So here's what I mean. Take combat realism, right? And of course, you're aware that I am talking about inside of Jeet Kune Do or outside of Jeet Kune Do when we talk about the application of the principles. If you take, let's say you agree that combat realism is a principle of Jeet Kune Do training. That inside of Jeet Kune Do, you can say that that's what led Dan Inosanto to acquire a few pairs of the Japanese police baton training glove, which then they modified so that they could punch like boxers, but they could also trap and grab like Wing Chun men. Now, outside of Jeet Kune Do, still sticking to the principle of combat realism, after spending time with Bruce Lee, weren't there some leading karate notables who went on to create what we call full contact karate or kickboxing? So that's the principle of combat realism, whether or not you agree that that is supposed to be a guiding principle of Jeet Kune Do. It's fair to say probably the 3 most popular, or the rendition of Jeet Kune Do principle that's most popular is the whole simplicity, directness, and non-classicalness. It's a word, right? So if we break those down, simplicity. So simplicity can mean refining your technique to the point where you express the maximum with the minimum. So as my favorite Canadian JKD senior puts it, for example, trying to break down a 6-move sequence into 3 moves, or even 2, or dare I say, even into 1 motion. So that's simplicity. Directness is often expressed as taking the most economical route to the target. There's also the idea of immediacy of response in terms of directness. So Bruce Lee's magniloquence said, respond like an echo, adapt like a shadow. But his physical demonstration of directness would be, for example, to throw a wallet and just have the person catch it and then extrapolate that you didn't think about catching it. You didn't have to think about it. You didn't have to get into any appropriate wallet catching stance in order to perform the technique. You were just direct. Now, when you think about this, you will notice the crossover factor between simplicity and directness. Because if I can take a 6-move sequence and break it down into 1 move, 1 simple move, you can be sure that that 1 simple move will also be direct. Blocking and hitting is simple, but it is not as direct as the simultaneous parry and hit or even intercepting, right? So there could be crossover factor, but we still have to continue to drill down and make sure that all of the possibilities contained in the idea of being simple, contained in the idea of being direct, that we are addressing all the possibilities. And finally, there's the element of freedom or effectiveness or non-classicalness or what have you. For Bruce Lee, this meant not being confined to the established way of doing things, as in the traditional arts. It was about rejecting the idea that there was one way to do things. You know, like I think Russell is on here, so Russell has heard me talk about, you know, in my favorite art to beat up on, Shotokan, right? When you do Heian Shodan, you have to go to the left first. You cannot go to the right. If you go to the right, you're doing it wrong. So there's one way to do it in the traditional art, and Bruce Lee rejected that idea because, as he said, a lot of times that so-called correct way is just, it's correct simply because it had been done that way forever. Non-classical can also mean personalizing, but in personalizing, making sure that you stick to a goal, for example, of maximum efficiency. So this can mean, and this is where I will lose some people, this can mean modifying what you already know, or heaven forbid, creating something new to solve a problem which you may not have previously encountered. I will lose some people with that statement, but it's okay. He's not my good friend, but I do listen, I do watch a lot of what he does, and we have communicated. From Kung Fu Report, Sifu Adam Chan, he said something really interesting the other day. He says that most people are not interested in identifying what they don't know. They're only interested in identifying what they do know, because then they sound and appear and also feel like they know what they're talking about. So you just stick to what you know. So if you know a lot of quotes from the Tao of Jeet Kune, you stick to that. If somebody asks you a question about something that you don't know, you're not interested in finding out more about that, because if you have to talk about something that you don't, if you have to identify that you don't know about something, then you might lose the security in how you think you're perceived or whatever. So anyhow, I'll leave you with this, just so you know. In researching for today's broadcast, I actually came across an article that was titled "Applying Bruce Lee's Jeet Kune Combat Philosophy in Plastic and Reconstructive Surgery, 7 Principles for Success." I kid you not. You can look it up for yourself. So, what say you? Do you think that this application of Jeet Kune principles is limited to within the art of Jeet Kune, or are there other ways to apply these Jeet Kune principles inside, outside the art, even outside of martial art in other fields? Let me know what you think in the comments below. And that's all I got to say about this video. If you like what you heard, please comment, rate, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Follow me on Twitter at Dwight Woods and on Instagram at Dwight D. Woods. You're already aware, no Jeet Kune Dialogues episode on Friday. We will resume next Friday. We will be back next Wednesday as well for another issue of the I Love Jeet Kune broadcast. So this being the final broadcast for 2021, I want to wish everyone a happy new year. I want to say thank you for hanging with me here on Facebook and the YouTube for another year. Today is a pastel day, so I went with the pink pastel. And happy new year again. I'll see you guys back here next week and next year for another issue of the I Love Jeet Kune broadcast. Until then, this is Dwight Woods, the Jeet Kune Rebels, signing off. Take care now. Talk soon.